if we are not healing our past traumas, then it's really easy to be re-victimized by other things happening around us. And if that spiral is keep going, then next time and next time and next time, it's only going to get worse.
Are you curious about discovering ways of making your life better? Then welcome to my podcast. I'm Bob Nickman, and this is The Exploding Human. Listen in while I talk with all kinds of people in the fields of personal growth, health and healing, alternative therapies, psychology, spirituality, environment, and the future. I'm looking for those answers that make life better for everyone. You'll meet cutting-edge practitioners, doctors, artists, filmmakers, business people, and those who have overcome challenges. The brave, the curious, anyone who is out there helping us humans to explore, expand, and explode.
Hey, welcome to The Exploding Human. My name is Bob Nickman. My guest today is Sussi Mattsson, and we're going to be talking about her profound insights on healing emotional wounds and finding meaning in life. Sussi is going to be talking about her own personal childhood trauma, which is an amazing story of resilience and courage, and some of the techniques she has developed in helping others to heal their personal pain through writing what she calls wisdom letters. This group of people that she has been working with for many years, many thousands of people, she calls them the wisdom writers, and you're going to find out what that is all about and her 4-step method that anyone can use to heal trauma. So let's get into this. This is Sussi Mattsson. Good morning, Sussi. We just found out before we started recording that we're living in the same city, and I thought she was at a big distance from me, but she's about like 2 miles away. So I'm glad you're here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, I am so happy. I think we're going to have a good time. That's my aim for all this stuff is like, let's get some information about living and body, mind, and spirit, however we do that, but also a good time. You know, we don't know how long we're going to be around, so we might as well enjoy it. And here's what I want to talk about. You know, like I was telling you before, the 2 topics that come up the most on my podcast for issues or people are gut health, which we're not going to do that one because that's not your field, and trauma, which you know quite a bit about. So we are going to talk about, we talk about some of the healing modalities that are out there for trauma. Some of them hypnotherapy and EMDR and all these different, different trauma work. But we're going to talk about something that doesn't get talked about a lot, which is writing and how that can help people with trauma. So why don't you start with, well, a little bit about your story, because you know your story better than I know your story. And how and I know you're a business coach and life coach. Tell the audience what transpired in your life to bring you to this point and then we're going to get into how this can help people.
In order to give you the full picture, we need to go back in time. When I was 8 years old, my mom had just passed away from cancer. And I was left to live with my father, and he was super abusive. I mean, really abusive in every way. And after living with him for 6 months, I found out that he was about to sell me to strangers down to Southern Europe. We found a false passport and also a one-way airline ticket for the following day, meaning it was quite urgent to find a solution for me to not board that plane straight to hell. And I was only 8 years old. And So the one thing that I came up with after reading, I think you have it in English as well, Pippi Longstocking. There is a book where she runs away from home. And I thought as an 8-year-old girl, well, I can do that. So the next day, the following day, I actually ran away from home when I was 8 years old. 35 years later, I found myself in a place where I had really great success in my business, yet my personal life was kind of feeling meaningful and not meaningful, not fulfillment. So I decided I need to go back in time in order to successfully move forward and revisit this little 8-year-old girl. And in that process of diving deep into my past childhood trauma, I couldn't identify myself with that little courageous, super brave little girl who ran away from home and actually saved my life. So I decided to write her a letter to at least say thank you. Thank you for running away from home, and thank you for saving my life and being brave and courageous and etc. So that was the starting point of the first time I was presented to what happens when you put a pen to the paper and you're writing to your younger self, to your past trauma. It doesn't need to be a childhood trauma, just the past trauma. So I felt that all the pain that I had been carrying around for 34 years and was not belonging to me anymore. It belonged to the letter. And it was a strong transformational feeling in my body that I decided that I need to study more how writing is healing. And so diving deep into all this, and after 8 years, I created a simple yet profound method how to write a healing letter to yourself addressing a past trauma. So I tested it out to my coaching clients because I have coaching clients in over 20 countries. And they got like great beyond results that we could imagine. And I thought, well, this is kind of selfish to keep this method to myself. We need to go out and talk about this so we can help more people being happy. So that was the story behind why I started all this trauma work and how I tested out the method. And now I call those writers who have written their own wisdom letter, I call them for wisdom writers. And now we have over 11,000 wisdom writers from all around the globe. And they're sending in their letters of what happened to them, what they did to overcome it, a piece of wisdom they want to share with the world and help other people. So that is the story behind me being here and the work I'm currently doing.
Well, I had no idea that was the story until just now. I
Okay.
got some biographical stuff on you, but not that. It was just sort of perfunctory.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to hear that story. I have so many questions racing in my head with that story.
Okay.
You said we found out. When you say we, what did you mean by that?
My father had another woman, my stepmom, and she found the passports and the one-way airline ticket, and
Okay.
then she showed it to me and
Did she
said,
help
"This
you
is
to leave? Did she help you in some way, or?
the only way." The way that she helped me was actually to revealing my father's plan
Yeah.
for putting me on that plane the following day, and she gave me 10 Swedish kroner, which is equal of $1. So I had that in my pocket, and then I was off. So
Well, I mean that the story from 8 to whenever is probably an amazing movie at some point. I'm thinking, as a writer, but we don't want to go
yes.
into that necessarily. I don't want to sort of dredge too much of that up because I'm sure you're past it now. I can tell by the way you are. Here's one of the things I've discovered about writing. When you put pen to paper, or we could say computer, but I think actually physically holding a pen or a pencil and writing, it registers the information in the brain differently than if you just talk it or tell someone. I think there's an extra layer of understanding of what the thing is when you actually, and I don't know what the tactile thing is about that. Maybe you've looked into that, But I notice for me when I've written things out, and there's a lot of healing disciplines that talk about actually writing things out. Well, not a lot, but there's some. And I found that when it organizes it better, and it does, there's a, I don't even know what you would call it. It's sort of visually and psychically does something inside your body where it diminishes the pain in some way, but it also registers the idea that it's not your fault.
Yeah, because when we are expressing our trauma, we have an opportunity to actually transform what happened and reframe it in a different way. And I think it's the first step that I say to all my clients is actually acceptance. You need to accept. That's the first step. What happened happened. That's the first step. And then we need to pull out the life lessons, because even though you could be not aware of them, but in the subconscious mind, you have had some life lessons. And some people have difficulty with those because we are creating some kind of soul-sucking survival patterns when we are in pain. And then they become our normal. And then we think we are okay, but we are not. So when we are putting a pen to the paper and having a chance to express and write down our trauma, we get more clarity, but also what kind of words do you choose explaining your trauma? Because that is actually quite revealing of where you are. If you're past it, or if you are feeling guilty or shame, or you make excuses, or you play the victim card, or whatever level that you find yourself. So what we have found for all the wisdom writers that I have been working with is that turning those past traumas into piece of wisdom and building those healing bridge between your past to your present and your future, that is something that is so powerful and transformational, because you can see it from a more objective way.
It's a really amazing tool to change your perception of an event or a series of events or a belief system, where you can look at it as, yes, as something, well, maybe it was a pretty horrific thing when it happened, or traumatic, or whatever you want to talk about it. But what can I do now? Because I can't do anything about that thing that happened, because it's in the past. But what can I do now? How can I change my perception of what that is? And what can I, like you were saying, what kind of wisdom can come from it? And then sort of you went to the ultimate thing, which is how can I help other people?
Yeah, because the wisdom writers who are sending in those letters, we are collecting them and choosing letters to be in the upcoming book collection. And that will mean that everybody could take a book, and that will actually act as a survival guide for many people, reading stories of hope and inspiration from other who has been in your situation, and be willing to write down and pay forward their wisdom and the life lessons they have gained from that experience. So I think that a lot of people are currently struggling in silence, because often it doesn't show on the outside what's going on in the inside. And so a lot of people building those invisible walls, around your heart, because we believe they will save us. And yeah, so if I look at the clients that I have worked with, some of them are not aware of that the past trauma has actually affected them in that amount of way, because our core values and our belief system, those two lead our life, and they are highly affected of the life lessons that we acknowledge.
As I talked to you, seeing a very, and even before I knew this story, when we were talking before, I said, this is a very happy, healthy person. I could just feel it. And when you tell me this story, I'm like, there must have been some people along the way that were kind and that helped you, and that where you got this, where you were able to tap into your resilience even as a child. Are there such people? There must be.
What happened after I ran away from home, you can read that in my upcoming book, which will be out now in the spring.
I so want to read that book. What is the name of the book? Just so I'm going to write it down right now so I don't forget.
From me to you.
From me to you. Okay.
From me to you. It's a book filled with honestly describing the pain and the suffering that I have been going through, and what I needed to do to create a life of happiness. And I think if I see my clients and talk to my clients, some of them are struggling because they strive for happily ever after instead of just happy now. And so my question is, how can we create more joy and happiness now in our everyday life? And this whole process is all about what happens externally, how you handle it internally. Because a lot of people going through trauma or having pain or struggling with a couple of things, they seek answers externally, like different kind of addictions or alcohol or eating or whatever, instead of all the answers are within them. I finally ended up with a great foster parents, and this woman and man who became my adult role models, they were full of love and kindness. And that is also transition, because when I lived for 6 months with my abusive father, it is also takes a lot of effort to make the transition to living in a home filled with love and enough food and taking a bath every evening and getting hugs and kisses and somebody who is taking care of you and asking you, you're going to be okay, or how are you today? So people usually believe that, oh, you find a loving home, then everything was fine. No, there is also a transition that is taking a lot of time to be able to receive and be open to the love and transform by baby steps, transform myself, trusting people and being happy and smile and laugh and having enough food. I mean, we were super poor. And so there is a lot of things that not was easy, but with that family, getting all this love and compassion and kindness and taking care of you, bit by bit, I developed this solid harmony in my life.
Yeah, I was thinking like what the amount of time and how, in tiny increments you would learn to trust, because they say that the first 7 years of your life are really what form the human being. And that was, your first 7-8 years were just awful. And so when you take that being that's been programmed by, that environment for that long, I would think there would be two things. One, how can I really trust this new way? And do I even deserve it because of what happened to me before? That's what I must have deserved, because that's what I came in and got. And that's sort of in a probably an unconscious level. Obviously you're not forming these kind of clear thoughts at 8 years old. It's just, how does someone who feels that way about themselves, like, I don't deserve good things? I think a lot of people feel that way. I don't deserve good things. How did that? How did you sort of look at that and come to the place where you feel that you do, and that you're enjoy being probably the biggest thing that we all deserve?
When I stood in that hallway, and my stepmother showed the passport and the air ticket, I thought that I was worth saving, and I had nobody who could save me. So I needed to take action myself. And I think that a lot of people, from my experience working around the world, is that people are not believing in themselves enough. They don't bet on themselves, even though that I didn't know, because I didn't know where to run. I didn't know my way around town. I was only 8 years old, and this is back in 1978. Even though that you don't have the answers and you can see the whole staircase, it's just take the first step and be there as long as it takes until you're ready to take the next step. So I think that for me was the strong belief that I was worth saving. So I did take that action and run away from home, even though that was difficult. I mean, that was not easy in any way. But sometimes we need to have faith in ourselves and bet on ourselves that I'm going to be okay, even though I don't know the how. And I see that in my clients, because a lot of them have just closed the door to what haven't ever happened to them. They don't talk about it. Sometimes it's even a secret it's a family secret, or they just don't pretend it never exists. It never happened. And to be able to open that door, and just the teeny tiny little light can come into your soul, that's a good start. And of course, when you open the door to a trauma, it's easy to go back and be that person again, and have those negative feelings and experience all those negative feelings of, for instance, hopelessness or fearfulness or whatever you have experienced. But from my experience with a 4-step method of how writing your own wisdom letter is accept what is, and then pull out the life lessons. Because when we acknowledge the life lessons, then growth takes place and our self-confidence will increase. So that there is something happening with all the wisdom writers so far, when we are going through the life lessons, that, oh my gosh, this is actually me. I have been shaped like this, and I'm strong enough to do whatever I want to do. And then, of course, we're talking about the wisdom and the forgiveness work, because that is really heavy on many people. How do we forgive people who have done harm on us? And I struggle myself way back. How do I forgive my father? Because how do you forgive somebody who doesn't believe you need to be forgiven? I mean, that's really really struggling, until you realize that you need to forgive for yourself. It's not about the other people. It's about you, and to release yourself and find peace in your heart. And I see that in my work, because I worked with a special project with South Carolina prison inmates in South Carolina prison. And the forgiveness work was, they were writing their own wisdom letters. And the step where we came to doing the forgiveness work, that's really heavy on a lot of people.
Well, the idea of forgiving the unforgivable, because I think there are things that are so severely as close to unforgivable as you could get. That, and your case is one of them. Now that I'm hearing that, your situation, I'm going to call it a case. It's not a case, it's a situation.
Yeah.
And what is it? Here's the thing about that the idea of forgiveness is an amazing idea, and it is freeing. But when you have a situation that is so totally you take someone's innocence, a child. I don't know how that looked to, I've had struggles with forgiving people on certain things. I certainly doesn't mean that you're going to hang out with them and be friends with them. That's not part of it at all. It's just, there are people that are just not good to be around, and you
Mm-hmm.
don't want to be around them because it's not healthy. Then there's the
Mm-hmm.
part of understanding what made them the way they are and sort of having compassion for what probably transpired in their life to make them that way. That helps a lot to understand
Mm-hmm.
that they're damaged in some way. But then that next step of, well, okay, I get that, and in my mind I get it, but how does somebody open their heart? And I'm just sort of saying this rhetorically, uh, to a situation that happened that was just so deplorable. How do you do that in the writing or in life? I think that's always a big question. I mean, I have situations that I felt that I've forgiven, and then I take it back when I start thinking about it. It starts churning, and I'm like, oh, fuck that person. They're horrible. That's what I'm
Okay.
saying. That sort of rage that
Yeah.
comes up with somebody who's
Yeah.
wronged you in some way.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
But
maybe that's part of it too, is to, maybe it's increments. It's like, well, I'm forgiving them 10% now, but I'm going to even take that back, but now I'm only at 8%, but I still have a little bit, and then it sort of builds.
yeah.
How do you help people do that?
Well, I think that we need to remember that our stories, they will always live in our heart.
Yeah.
But if we have unhealed traumas or people we need to forgive, that will always show up in our actions. Subconsciously, we are affecting our belief system. All our roles in our lives are affected and shaped by that experience, even though you are not acknowledge it or not. That is the fact. So when we work with forgiveness, it's about not giving your power away, because that's exactly what you're doing.
Mhm.
If you're allowing another person to have that effect on you to that degree, you're giving your power away. And you need to take back that power, and you are worth to set yourself free from that person, because you don't want to hang around or have them as a friend or whatever the case is. So in order to save yourself and be genuinely, authentically happy, you need to set yourself free from them, and you're worth more than having them in your heart, in your soul. And so we are talking about the power. Where do I want to place my power? I want to place it in myself and what I can do for myself and people I love, like my family or children or siblings or whatever I have. So when you're allowing another person to have that power in your life and still holding on, then you give your power away. Of course, it is a process. So far, all the wisdom writers who have been doing this method and sending in their letters have been able to forgive. And they have had really strong
Sure.
uh, reasons to actually not forgive, but they're choosing themselves. And if we are talking about the special project for the inmates in South Carolina prison, it's really hard not to just forgive other people, but forgiving yourself. Because for them, it was about the forgiveness, what they have done to somebody else. There is a lot of exercises, of course, to finally arrive to the destination of forgiveness. But a good start to all the listeners is actually, do I want to give my power away? And why am I allowing to continue that person having so much space in my soul and in my heart? And why am I not able to release them?
Yeah.
And sometimes there is actually a reason. I know for myself, because I was able to forgive my father before he passed away. But from that day that I ran away, I didn't see him. I didn't have any contact with him. I did I didn't see him anything. And then one day there was a letter coming in the mail saying he passed away. My response was, I missed the opportunity to talk to him. Why? What's the why behind? He could sell his own daughter. So I became more angry at myself of the missed opportunity not talking to him. So my advice to a lot of clients who are struggling with forgiveness is do it while they are alive, because you can still get answers if you need them, of course.
Yeah, sometimes you can get answers, and sometimes you can't. I think sometimes I'm going to tell you a story, not about me. A friend of mine, when he was a kid, his father abandoned the family, and he became an alcoholic, and then he got sober, and he went to his father, and he found his father. The father didn't support the family at all, didn't send money, didn't do anything. So his mom had to raise him and his sister. He went to his dad as an adult, and he said, why did you abandon the family? And the guy says, nobody tells me what to do. That was his answer. And he goes, my God, you had 2 children. He just, that was his answer. Nobody tells me what to do. I don't even know how you sort of, how you can even sort of look at a person like that. Obviously a very damaged guy who had a belief system that was, it probably made him very lonely throughout his entire life, because, if you're going to get along with anybody, they're going to say things that you don't want to hear, or you're going to have to compromise yourself. That's what an adult has to do to be in any kind of relationship. So I guess, I never really talked to him about whether he forgave him or not. I think he did, but I think he was very eternally hurt by that. One, the dad's behavior, and 2, by the response he got when he finally was able to talk to him, 2 adult men. So he's a pretty happy guy. So I think he resolved, whatever that was. But when he was telling me the story, I could still feel the wound to some degree. It doesn't mean the wound goes away, I guess, is really what I'm trying to say. It just doesn't rule you.
No, in that case, it seems like a dead end, because you're not able to have a conversation with a person with that kind of answer. But at the core, from working with thousands and thousands of people, at the core, what really matters, we all want the same thing. We want happiness, we want belonging, we want love, we want something meaningful to do, we want experience fulfillment. If we don't check the boxes from those basic needs of humans, then bad things happen. And I think sometimes bad things can happen to good people, because we are just humans, and we just make bad decisions. We need to redirect the focus on ourselves, and not in the forgiveness work, and not focus on the other person. It's not my forgiveness and my happiness and my ability to move on, build my own bridge, and the gap that divides my past to my bigger future. I mean, if I'm doing all that kind of work, it's not depending on other people around me if they forgive me or not.
Somebody once said to me, I was complaining about something, some things, probably something from the past, or you're not your story. And I didn't know what they meant. I do now. I didn't know what they meant. What does that mean? You're not your story. Well, yes, your story are the things that happen to you, but there's a part of you that's, and you had this, you described it at 8 years old, that's untouchable by the world. That's eternal, and that's, even if it was a tiny little spark that was remaining, a flame, let's just call it, because that's a great image, I think. That's that is who we are despite the things that happen to us.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I think people have a tendency to hang on to is their story,
Mm-hmm.
because it gives you permission to maintain a belief system, which is a great survival tool when you need it, and
Mm-hmm.
also to feel sorry for yourself. It's
Mm-hmm.
really easy. There's a lot of, honestly, I have to say, for me, there's a lot of, I call it the warm blanket of self-pity. There's something about
Mm-hmm.
it that actually feels pretty good, because, ultimately, no, but when it's going on and you feel that the world has wronged you in some way or many ways, there is a comfort in that feeling, that emotion. It demands a lot of attention in its
It's
own.
familiar. It's
It
familiar.
is. Yeah.
And that's all you know, because you have been living in that mode for so long. So that's all you know. It's really good to remind ourselves that where we come from means something, yet who you deliberately want to become in the future, that is more important, because nobody is stuck. There is a choice, and you have a choice. If you want to keep on living and allowing that trauma to affect you in a negative way, or if you want to heal and move forward, there is a choice. And you need to make the deliberate decision that no, I don't want to play the victim card. I want to be happy, and I want my kids to be happy, because we bleed on other people even though we are not aware of it.
Yeah. You can't hide.
So
You can't hide it no
no,
matter how hard you
no,
try. Yeah.
no. I think, yes, a lot of people can identify themselves with the stories because that's all they know and that's their identity. But it doesn't have to be that way. Ask yourself, what's the cost of holding on? I have a client, I had a client, a lady who wanted to break the generational trauma in their family. And the first time I talked to her, she was not feeling strong enough. She didn't want to dive in that darkness of dealing with all that, because she didn't want to give away the abuser was actually in the family. So she thought she was in a really difficult situation. But we had quite a conversations, and then she decided that she was the one. She wanted to be the one who didn't give that to her children. Sometimes we find ourselves in a situation where we have to make a deliberate choice. Is this who I am, who I want to be? And what's the cost of holding on? Or what's the benefits of moving forward?
One of the reasons, and I don't know if it's the ego or whatever it is that's, I think, may stop some people from doing what this woman decided to do and what you decided to do, is, what if I do this work and it doesn't work? Now I'm really screwed. At least with self-pity, there's a chance somewhere in the future. It's, murky and not real, but that it's a way to avoid responsibility for yourself. It really is what it comes down to. And I think that's very frightening for a lot of people. It's like, what if I try this and it doesn't work? Then I'm really messed up. But that seems like one of the biggest lies that you can tell yourself, that just isn't true. If something is so awful and it's this anchor to your happiness, what is the downside of working on it? Nothing. There's no downside. There's no downside because you're already anchored. So there's only an upside, even though can be very terrifying to look at certain things that are highly unpleasant.
What I have seen now with the 4-step method, the 4-step wisdom letter writing method that I developed, is that it is proven to work. And we have so many success stories. I mean, oh my gosh.
I love it.
I'm so grateful for all the wisdom writers who are showing strength and courage to write their stories and send in the letters and to be able to collect them in the book collection and helping other people. We have had one guy, he was abandoned by his mother, and his mother was put in prison for other reasons, and he hadn't spoke to her for 15 years. And after writing his wisdom letter, he called me and he said, well, Sussi, I have booked a flight. I'm going to see her. Oh my gosh, it took so much courage for him to actually revisit his past, because we also need to remember that if we are not healing our past traumas, then it's really easy to be re-victimized by other things happening around us. And if that spiral is keep going, then next time and next time and next time, it's only going to get worse. So the best advice is go back in time and revisit your trauma and try to heal it, because nobody can live our life with no bumps on the road. I mean, life will hit us with some challenges, and we need to equip ourselves and be resourceful. How much time do I want to spend in the valley when some bad things happens? I mean, am I enough resourceful to pull myself up and take my power back and be happy? And I believe that if we are able to create more happy people through the wisdom letter writing and live a more honest and authentic life and improving relationships with family and kids, then we are doing a good job.
One of the things that happens when one person in a family changes is that it that also gets all over everybody in a good way.
Yeah.
And they can choose to maybe, oh, look what happened to my sister or my brother. They're doing okay now. And then so it opens up possibilities for the other traumatized people in those kinds of families.
Because you become a role model that that it is possible to heal.
So the 4 steps, just briefly, I mean, acceptance is one and forgiveness is which step, and there's what's in between.
It's the life lessons. We need to identify the life lessons. We need to transform the life lessons into piece of wisdom. And then we are ending up with gratitude and love. Love for ourselves and love to others. And the life lessons, my research showed that we need to divide life lessons into different categories, because we have life lessons about ourselves and we have life lessons about others, but also in the world in general. So we are dividing life lessons into 3 different categories, and that have shown that it's more effective to do it that way. And also the forgiveness work, we're working with ourselves first before we are working forgiveness towards others, and the same for love. So the 4 steps, they are obviously deliberate. What actually do you need to address to write a healing letter to yourself? And also in which order do you need to write it? Because you want to set up your brain and your soul and your heart for success. So it's really a lot of study behind what do I address and which order do I do those 4 steps, and all the exercises around those, obviously.
And you help people with this online, I'm assuming, because you said you're helping people all over the world. How do people get a hold of you to do this?
I have private coaching sessions with people one-on-one if they want to have that. I have workshops, but we are releasing and launching our app, the For Me to You app, and there is a lot of resources in that app who could help you with trauma and healing and mental health in general. So I'm really proud of the work we are doing to reach more people, larger scale of people globally, and to create a better. I think we need to collectively heal. That's one of my beliefs. And that's the reason why I created the app. I mean, I can heal and you can heal and a couple of other people can heal. But if we can collectively heal, then there is a movement forward. And I think that's one way of reconnecting humanity. Because what I have seen is I have a lady in India who have been raped, and her pain and struggle is exactly the same as the woman in Canada who been raped. So yeah. we having the same kind of suffering, the same kind of pain, the same kind of hurt. So there are more commonalities than differences in the world when it comes to trauma, how we experience trauma, but also how we heal and what we really want to have in our life.
A little global healing sounds good to me. I applaud your efforts and your great success, and I'm looking forward to reading this book when it comes out. Say the name of the book again, and then say your name, the whole thing, so people aren't going to wonder, how do I get this? Where do I do it? How can I be part of the Sussi Mattsson world?
If you are interested in healing your past trauma, you go to the website, which is frommetoumovement.com, and you will find the app. The app is called From Me to You. The book is called From Me to You. That's where you go.
Yeah, and if people want to do one-on-one personal coaching, they can do that too.
Absolutely.
I really appreciate your time, and I'm so excited you're my neighbor. Even if I never see you,
yes.
I would love to see
yes.
you sometime.
Absolutely.
Riding your bike on the beach.
Do
I don't know what you do, but I'm around. I walk around sometimes. Folks, Sussi Mattsson, what a wonderful person you are, Sussi.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. Have a beautiful day.
You too, Bob. Thank you.
Much appreciation for you folks listening to The Exploding Human. The website is theexplodinghuman.com. The YouTube channel is The Exploding Human with Bob Nickman. Once again, I want to thank Sussi Mattsson for being on the show. Please check her out at frommetoumovement.com, and you can get her book and the app, and you can contact her if you want some personal coaching. Have a fantastic day. Thank you.